The ongoing debate about abortion in the United States and around the world is one of the most contentious moral divides of the 21st century. On one side is the pro-choice position, which to varying degrees advocates access to safe and legal abortions as a woman's right. On the other side is the pro-life position, which argues that at the moment of conception or very soon after, a fertilized egg becomes a human life. Full disclosure as preface. 1. My teenage years were defined by early 2000s American evangelical culture. I went to a private Christian high school, so the education that I received in our health, not sex ed, health class on the subject was very much influenced by conservative Christian beliefs at the time. We had the option to watch the famous anti-abortion video, Silent Screams, and it was made very clear to us that abortion was one of the great moral evils of our time. 2. I am a cisgendered man. I will never experience pregnancy in the way that many women do, and if I have my way, I will never make any woman pregnant. That being said, I am not sure that I can ever have a valid opinion on what a woman should do or shouldn't do when she is going through something that I will never really understand in the way that a female would. Okay, that's out of the way. So like many strongly held beliefs I had as a teenager, I was forced to reevaluate these ideas as I deconverted from Christianity. I've heard very strong arguments from the pro-life position, and I've heard very strong arguments from the pro-choice position. I've discussed it with people who have gone through abortions, and their feelings on it range from relief to deep regret. Recent undercover videos by a group called Center for Medical Progress claim to depict people associated with the organization Planned Parenthood, a leading abortion provider in the United States, selling the dismembered body parts and tissues of aborted fetuses. I'm skeptical about whether these videos were edited deceptively, but regardless, these videos did make me think about how my thinking has changed on the subject. While I have a number of concerns about the pro-choice movement as it currently exists, I find that I actively despise the most powerful institutions of the pro-life movement even more. I think they promote problematic and outright sexist views about the quote-unquote proper places of men and women. I think they reinforce problematic ideas about homosexuality, including just outright bigotry. And I think that sites like LifeSite News and Live Action are quickly pushing their entire movement towards sex-negative anti-contraception extremism. This to me points towards an underlying suspicion that parts of the pro-life movement are not primarily concerned with the defense of the unborn, again quote unquote, but in pushing archaic superstitions from a violent and cruel invisible being. This brings me to the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. Anti-abortion groups, from my experience, are nearly always associated with some form of Judeo-Christian Islamic religion. There are secular pro-life groups, to be sure, including one that I've seen table at an American Atheist Convention, but mostly it's people who believe in the Abrahamic God. They hold to the idea that this God of theirs treasures human life and is deeply grieved and angered by the slaying of the innocent. But here's where it falls apart, pro-lifers. If you're going to ground your belief in the sanctity of human life in a deity, you gotta pick a better deity than Yahweh. Yahweh is without a doubt one of the most violent and bloodthirsty deities in all of the pantheons of mythological deities that humans have ever come up with. Please tell me why in the world I should allow myself to be judged for my commitment to the sanctity of life by a deity who 9 chapters into his own scriptures has already drowned every pregnant, air-breathing land creature carrying a fetus on the face of the planet. I mean, really? A being that is willing to commit genocide on a planetary scale and who will harden the heart of the head of state so that he can glorify himself by destroying the firstborn of an entire country is the basis for the claim that innocent life needs to be protected at all costs? By logical extension, one must also assume that during the invasion of the Promised Land, God also condoned the killing of pregnant women who were carrying fetuses and even newborn infants. I mean, some stories like Joshua and the Battle of Jericho have Yahweh outright telling the Hebrews that they need to go into a city and kill everything, men, women, children, livestock. That had to include pregnant women at various stages of gestation. Strange, considering that just a generation or two earlier, the Hebrews had supposedly experienced the mass killing of their own children at the hands of the Egyptians, but whatever. Some people have even argued that there are instances of Yahweh condoning the termination of pregnancies in the Bible. In Numbers chapter 5, we learn that the specific way in which the ancient Israelites tested whether a woman had been messing around behind the back of her husband. Her husband was supposed to bring her before a priest, and the priest was supposed to make her drink holy water. If she was innocent, then she'd be fine. But if guilty, her thigh would rot, her belly would swell, and she'd be cursed. What is meant by thigh rot and belly swelling is unclear, but some versions of the NIV translation straight up imply in their texts and annotations that if the woman was unfaithful, she would be barren, and if her cheating had caused a pregnancy, it would induce a miscarriage, a human-induced miscarriage. This interpretation of Numbers 5 is an unusual one, but it has been used by some, and whoever translated this version of the NIV seemed to believe that it was implying that the Israelites were supposed to induce a miscarriage if this woman was guilty of cheating and had become pregnant. In 1 Samuel, we have Yahweh directly striking the newborn child of David and Bathsheba with sickness and letting it die slowly, seemingly because he did not like the adultery surrounding its conception. The child would not have had any say in how it was conceived, so I'm not sure why it's being victimized. I mean, anti-abortion Christians will often employ the "don't punish the child for the sins of its parent" when facing questions of pregnancies that are the result of rape and non-consensual practices, but their God seems perfectly willing to strike an innocent because he was upset about the way in which he or she was conceived. I'm sure that we can all find other examples of the biblical God somehow condoning actions that logically must have resulted in the termination of one or more pregnancies, but whatever. It's weird. I mean, apologists like William Lane Craig and others like to claim that morality springs from the essential moral character and nature of Yahweh. If that's so, then this ain't a God you want to base your sanctity of life claims in, or your defend the unborn because they are innocent claims in. Pick a more respectable God, or a kinder one, or perhaps even better, join those of us here on the side of godlessness and, enjoy consistency.